A new global food shock is emerging as the Iran war sends ripples through international supply chains from factories to supermarket shelves worldwide. Major shipping routes through the Persian Gulf, which handle nearly 20% of global food trade, face severe disruptions as military operations intensify. Agricultural commodities including wheat, rice, and cooking oils are experiencing dramatic price spikes, with some markets reporting increases of over 30% in just 2 weeks. Food manufacturers across Europe and Asia report ingredient shortages forcing production slowdowns, while retailers warn of empty shelves in coming days. The crisis particularly threatens food-insecure regions in Africa and South Asia, where millions already face malnutrition. International food aid programs are scrambling to secure alternative supply routes as traditional shipping lanes become increasingly dangerous. The World Food Programme warns this could trigger the worst global hunger crisis in decades, potentially affecting over 200 million additional people. Supply chain experts predict shortages could persist for months even after hostilities end. Europe has sleepwalked into yet another devastating energy crisis as Middle East conflicts disrupt critical oil and gas supplies to the continent. Industrial facilities across Germany, France, and Italy are implementing rolling shutdowns as energy costs skyrocket beyond sustainable levels for manufacturers. Natural gas prices have tripled in the past month, forcing governments to activate emergency rationing protocols not seen since the previous energy shortage 2 years ago. The crisis strikes at the heart of European unity, with member nations competing for limited supplies and questioning collective energy policies. Major petrochemical plants and steel mills face indefinite closures, threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs across the industrial heartland. Energy ministers held emergency meetings in Brussels yesterday, but failed to reach consensus on coordinated response measures. Consumer electricity bills are expected to surge by 60% or more, potentially triggering widespread social unrest as winter approaches. This marks the third major energy disruption to hit Europe in 5 years, raising fundamental questions about the continent's energy security strategy and its vulnerability to geopolitical shocks in distant regions. Pakistan and Afghanistan have declared a fragile truce after weeks of devastating cross-border fighting, but civilians in Kabul are counting the horrific cost of war as families search for missing relatives. At Kabul's emergency hospital, dozens of grief-stricken relatives crowded around a thick registry book, desperately checking names of victims killed in yesterday's catastrophic airstrike on a rehabilitation center. United Nations officials confirm over 100 people died in the attack, including patients receiving treatment for disabilities and medical staff. The facility, which provided critical services to war-wounded civilians, was completely destroyed in what witnesses describe as multiple precision strikes. The sudden ceasefire announcement came after intense international pressure, but many question whether the agreement will hold given previous failed attempts at peace. Cross-border artillery exchanges over the past month have displaced more than 50,000 civilians, with refugee camps overflowing on both sides of the border. Humanitarian organizations struggle to provide adequate medical care and food supplies to the growing numbers of displaced families. The international community now watches closely to see if this latest truce can bring lasting stability to the volatile region. The Middle East conflict has dramatically shifted into a devastating energy war as Iran launches coordinated strikes against Gulf oil and gas installations in retaliation for Israel's attack on the South Pars facility. Iranian forces targeted major energy infrastructure across the Persian Gulf overnight, hitting refineries in Saudi Arabia and the UAE in what Tehran calls a campaign to pressure an immediate end to hostilities. Global oil markets are reeling from the escalation, with crude prices jumping 40% in emergency trading sessions as investors panic over supply disruptions. The attacks mark a dangerous new phase in the conflict, directly threatening the energy lifeline that powers much of the world economy. Gulf states report significant damage to processing facilities that handle millions of barrels daily, with some installations expected to remain offline for months. Iran's strategy appears designed to force international intervention by creating economic chaos that extends far beyond the immediate conflict zone. Energy analysts warn that continued attacks could remove up to 15% of global oil supply from markets, triggering recession conditions worldwide. The international community faces mounting pressure to broker an immediate ceasefire before energy warfare creates irreversible economic damage across multiple continents. Arab and Muslim foreign ministers emerged from emergency talks in Riyadh with a unified strategy to counter Iranian military actions, marking unprecedented regional cooperation in response to escalating Middle East tensions. The closed-door sessions, which included representatives from 22 nations, focused on formulating coordinated diplomatic and defensive measures while asserting collective rights to self-defense under international law. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan announced the formation of a joint task force to monitor Iranian activities and coordinate intelligence sharing among member states. The ministers agreed to present a unified position to the United Nations Security Council, demanding immediate intervention to halt Iranian strikes on regional energy infrastructure. Several Gulf states committed to enhanced military cooperation, including joint air defense systems and rapid response protocols for future attacks. The Riyadh Declaration also calls for international sanctions targeting Iranian military capabilities and financial networks supporting regional operations. This level of Arab diplomatic unity hasn't been seen in decades, potentially reshaping Middle Eastern alliances for years to come. The success of this coalition could determine whether the region descends into broader warfare or finds a path toward negotiated resolution.